Hello, my name is Haven Walton, and today I'll be giving a presentation on whether to build a warehouse, build a seed bin system, or rent a warehouse. A multi-criteria decision analysis on the best storage. Todd County Seed is a company run in Allensville, Kentucky. It is a DuPont affiliate. They sell solely Pioneer seed, and they have started treating the seed that they sell. There are 3 owners. Initially, when they started in the fall of 2018, there were 2 owners, Greg Petrie and John Walton. But in the fall of 2019, they added Jared McGinnis. We're trying to assess a new form of storage for Todd County Seed because since they added Jared, there has been a significant amount of extra business that has come in, and they have run out of room to store seed that they have sold. The first option of a possibility is to build a warehouse. The second option being to build a seed bin system, and the third option being to rent a warehouse. This is the current warehouse that they have right now. It is located in Allensville, Kentucky. Mr. John Walton, he lives right up the road, so he's very close, so it makes it very easy for him to access and go to get the seed and help farmers out 7 days a week, whatever time of the day they need. The criteria for a decision analysis like this in this situation is how much money they will spend to create or to obtain these different forms of storage, as well as the time it will take until they are able to operate out of the form of storage, as well as the efficiency of these storages. The efficiency is going to be the most important because Mr. Walton has made it very clear that it is what he is looking at. Pro boxes like these are what they have in the warehouse now because that's the only way they can store them in there. The first option is to build a warehouse. Building a warehouse, it would look something like this. It would cost $85,000 to build a warehouse to this scale. They do have land right now that they could build the warehouse on, as well as the seed bin system, so that takes out a large expense, and it is located directly behind the current warehouse. It would take 4 to 6 months to construct something like this, and some of the efficiency things that are being looked at in this situation is something like this can hold 420 Pro boxes. It has a loading dock like this. This is one of the most important things that John has said. It's also one of the more expensive things that causes it to be a higher price due to the fact you have to dig out that hole, you have to put in a drainage system, as well as the concrete formation of it. Garage doors are very convenient in this situation because they are 16 feet tall, which allows for pretty much anything to drive through. They're on opposite sides, so they are capable of driving through. Quite often, Todd County Seed has treated directly into people's seed wagons. It has a very long life. It'll be used for as long as Todd County Seed is possibly around. As long as it's kept up, it should be usable for quite a significant long time. One of the kind of downfalls of it is the personal upkeep. Everything is on the owners of Todd County Seed because they do own this building, so the upkeep in that situation would be putting down new gravel and things to that, which will be an added cost to the $85,000. The next option is to build a seed bin system. The seed bin system would cost $125 to construct because they are quite significant. There's a lot to them. This is an example of the Steed Seed Company in Nebraska. They have a large-scale group of all of the bins that they work out of, but places like Nutrient Seed, which is also in Allensville, they have 4 of the hopper bins, which are bins that they have an opening at the top where this auger will put the seed into the top of it, And then at the bottom, there's a conveyor system that runs into this auger, which then, in this case, they have it running into a treater. But sometimes they don't even have to treat it. That's also another way for them to run it through, and then they'll bring it out this auger. But in this situation, there are quite a few augers, which is the reason for a higher significant price. It would take 6 months to construct something to the scale with the 4 bins. And some of the efficiency things that are looked at, this is a very high capacity thing that's used. There is quite a bit of seed that can fit in these bins at a very small surface area, so they don't take up a whole lot of space, but they hold a lot. It could be built on the home location on that spot of land that they also could build a new warehouse. The electrical is kind of a downfall because it solely relies on the electricity. So if something happened and they were short on the electricity, there was a short in the system, or they were just like they had the tractors, the augers or something, they would be out. There's no way that they could necessarily get the grain out of all the bins and move it through because they require that conveyor system. It does have a long life. They could use this for as long as they keep it up and keep the electricals and make sure the bins are cleaned out and the augers and the belts and everything are up to qualifications. And then a small space. But this is one at Nutrien that's located in Allensville. It's a very good example. It's probably what Todd County Seed should look into as a reference for what they should build if this is what they would have decided. Last option is to rent a warehouse. There aren't any places that you can rent a warehouse in Allensville, Kentucky, just because it's such a small place. So you have to go to outskirt towns, like farther off. One location is these two are in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and this one is in Clarksville, Tennessee, both 30 minutes away. The bottom one is 12,823 square feet, which is plenty of space, and they would have to rent the whole location. The top one is 54,958 square feet, which is a significant amount, but it is said within the papers that if they wanted to, they wouldn't have to rent the whole thing. Like they could take off have parts of the buildings or be located on one side of the property, which is good. This could take up to 3 months just because there are so many contracts and trying to figure out what would make everybody happy in the situation between the realtor, the owner, and the person who would be renting it, as well as the inspections that would be required to make sure that it is safe and it is up to par with all the abilities just to operate in the first place. Some of the things that are looked at when referring to efficiency, the first thing that stands out is it is off of the land, so it's far away. Like I said, it would be 30 minutes away from John Walton. It would be every bit of 45 minutes away for Greg Petrie, and it would be an hour and 20 minutes for Jerry McGinnis. All of these are quite far, and there's just not any options that are close. The very good part about this is the fact that Todd County Seed is its most busiest from mid-April to mid-September. So there's 5 months that technically they would need the extra space, and the other 7 months of a year they wouldn't really need the extra warehouse. They could probably get along with the one warehouse they do have, because in those 5 months that's planting season, and that's when all the farmers are in and out needing their seed. Todd County Seed's at full capacity, holding everybody's grain or seed that they're waiting to come pick up. So this also makes the price significantly lower when, for example, you could rent 10,000 square feet of these for the prices that they are listed, and it would be, I think it's 5,000 square feet, and that would be $10,000 a month which would come down to them only spending $50,000 a year, which does make it one of the lowest prices. The upkeep is by the owner if that is considered in the contract. So necessarily the lights go out, then that's on the owner. They have to come and change those. It's up to them to make sure the gravel's to par with what the contract has labeled in it. And there are quite a few options. They would never have to settle with one warehouse. They could find something to par with what they wanted and what they required to operate and what the loading docks that they would need to unload semis and load trailers and things like that. And the ability to move tow motors around would be really important, and high ceilings to stack quite a few pro boxes. So they would have options looking around, just far off from where any of them live. Next, we analyze. In this situation, we took the 3 criteria and scaled each of the options on a scale of 1 to 10 by the best scenario. Say if the price was the lowest, then they got one of the highest scores, and if the time was the lowest, then they got one of the highest scores. On the first one, we have the money that it will require to be spent. To build a warehouse, it was got a score of 8 because it would require $85,000, which is less than the seed bin system but more than the rental warehouse. So to build a seed bin system, it got a score of 6 because it is the $125,000, including the auger and all the electrical upkeep and everything, all the other prices that'll go into it. And then you have the rental warehouse. It got a score of 10 because it is a very convenient way to judge by how much space you need and then how long you need that space. So they could be spending as low as $50,000 a year. The next thing that we analyzed was the time till operation. So the length of time it would take to be able to operate in these forms of storage. Build a warehouse got a 6 because it would take 4 months. Build seed bin system got a 4 because it would take 6 months. And rent a warehouse got a 7 because it would take the 3 months required to do the contracts and things like that. And for the build a warehouse and build a seed bin system, that relies solely on how much time, like the weather and if there's going to be delays or if they run into problems. So it's kind of like that's what's to be expected, but you never know what could happen. Where with rent a warehouse, it's pretty expected of how long it's going to take to get in there and get all the contracts filled out and things. Next thing, the most important, is the efficiency of the storage, which Mr. Walton has made it very clear is his most sought out reason to do any of these. Build a warehouse got an 8. It has worked for them before. They know it works well. They're easily accessible by the tow motor. They have the loading dock, the garage doors. They know that it's something that will work for them. It got an 8 solely because it didn't get a higher than an 8 because of the fact that they do have to store everything in their in-pro boxes and on pallets. So all of the storages of the seed take up quite a bit of space themselves. So that is almost a way of wasting space, but and still did get a score of 8 just because of all the things that it is capable of. Build a seed bin system got a 7 because it takes up so little space and it is very efficient if it's working well. But you have to think about the fact that you're relying on a lot of parts, and you got to worry about the electrical end of things. And say if one thing goes down, the whole system's not going to work. You're relying on a conveyor. You're relying on the augers. Everything's just kind of hand in hand. And if one of them is out, then that's the whole system. You won't be able to get seed out of it. And the last option is rent a warehouse. The fact that it is so far away from any of the owners, and I know that they would be up late nights delivering seed and early mornings, and not being able to be close to that, or at least have one of them close, would be a problem. the fact that they don't have the ability of finding something that is exactly perfect and exactly what they would need for selling seed. Like some places, like most warehouses, aren't going to have the super tall ceilings and a loading dock and tow motor accessibility or drive-through garage doors or things like that. Like they're going to have to get rid of some options to be able to keep the things that really do matter. They wouldn't be able to have the tow motor. They would have to have their own tow motor on site, and that's a far off distance. Whereas with the other two, you could drive the tow motor from the original warehouse back to the new warehouse or the seed bin system. The final decision comes down to scale of this. The rent a warehouse got a 20. Build a warehouse got a 22. And build a seed bin system got a 15. But when you put them into scale, the first and best in this situation is to build a warehouse. The second is to build a seed bin system, and the third is to rent a warehouse. The second is to build a seed bin system, even though it got a 15 when being scored, is because of the fact that it is so much more efficient than to rent a warehouse, and Mr. Walton made that very clear, and that's his wavering decision maker. Like, that's what he's going to look at the most. So it would be a very good idea to look into building a seed bin system before they settled with renting a warehouse. But building a warehouse seems to be the most efficient and best decision in this case, even though it's something that they've done before and they wouldn't be able to branch out. And if branching out is significantly important to them and they want to try something new, then I would highly encourage building a seed bin system. But in this case, with what they've said is important to them and what they require and what they need to be able to operate at capacity, I would highly encourage to build another warehouse. Thank you.